Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Halo Labs. I'm really excited to have Richard Lear here with me today. Very, very eager to talk to you about the things that you've done, your story, and everything else. So, this show is essentially all about exploring stories and ideas behind leaders that have shaped the future of business and technology as we know it. And before we get into all the tech and the companies and strategy, who is Richard Lear as a person? And what's the story? What do you do? Where do you come from?
Yeah, where do I come from? I was born in Washington, D.C., not a state. I grew up on the East Coast and I went to school in New England and lived in California for a bunch of years. Was a recruiter. I had a music career prior to that. Recruited in technology for companies, director level up across, everything from startup companies to, major companies like the Amazons and the Googles and the Apples of the world. That's the period where I really came into contact with people and jobs and employment and compensation and all the things that surround performance and productivity in a company where talent's involved. And so that was my talent background.
Interesting. Interesting. So then what got you into business originally, or the tech side, I should say? What made you transition? Like, what was the sparking moment that made you want to get interested in it?
So I started getting ideas when the internet started booming. I started getting a bunch of ideas. I tell folks about the ideas, including my clients, Microsoft and Real Networks. And all of a sudden I saw them developing products like I had described to them. It's kind of, whoa. And then I had other friends, like Hotmail was an idea I had before Hotmail came out. E-groups was an idea I had before e-groups came out. And
Wow.
was seeing all these things. Everyone said, you got to start a company. You have all these ideas, and 16 or 18 months later, somebody comes in and sells her company for 300 million. So I started a couple companies. I started a company called Rich Media Networks, not about Rich Me, but Rich Media, the actual tool. That was basically it was the first sort of web television. It was a live performance with talent and with a brand. It was built around brands, and we got knocked out when the .com bust happened. But we were actually a company that had revenue, and it was too bad. But I let that go, got back to search, and then started thinking more ideas, and came up with a bunch more. One was the Pinterest idea 6 years before Pinterest that we didn't actually. We built a prototype, and then my team didn't connect. So we abandoned that. We saw Pinterest come up. I said, oh my God,
Oh no.
I got to do something else.
No.
I then created another product, which was an interviewing platform for iOS. And that was a good one. Andreessen really liked that one. They said, we won't fund the seed, but we will fund an A if you can prove it. Let that one go. And so by the mid 2000s, I said, I want to do something with really what I know about, the really deeply, and that's compensation. And I started to play with the compensation platform. And we started, thinking about AI and compensation back about 2016, 17, 18. Wrote a patent on it in 2020 and built a platform, which was a real-time marketplace for compensation for the tech market that was, 70 or 80% done. But it turns out that particular kind of platform, you can't be 70, 80% there. It's not the kind of market, they say, well, build something, build a prototype, build an MVP, and then let your customers hit. You have to be perfect in compensation. You can't be 20% off it. People won't use it. So
Right.
we spent a couple of years trying to perfect it. And then that's when the great resignation happened. Everybody that we showed the compensation platform to said, AI, this is 2022. AI, no, we can't see AI for compensation. Real time, we really need real time. We've got surveys already. We really don't need it. So we all said, oh my gosh, our assumptions were wrong. So we then went out and built a platform for retention that actually became a performance and productivity platform. And by the time we finished that, we were getting low on funds. So it's a built platform ready to go, but it needs more funding. It's called TalentValue, and it's a great platform. But at that point, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 2024, real time started to make progress in the comp market, and companies were coming out with real time. So we went, oh, let's go back and look at our platform. And then about 6 to 8 months later, with ChatGPT and a lot of AI. And by the way, we're not a generative AI platform. We're basically a hybrid AI platform, which is a little different.
Okay.
But people started getting open to AI. So we said, okay, let's put our scarce resources into building this platform for compensation. And that's what we've been doing. And we're now pilot mode with 4 major companies in tech. It is now at, predicting around 92 to 94% accuracy across 5 billion predictions in tech.
Wow.
It's the largest platform in tech that we know about. It is a single source of compensation. We can see CEOs at Google. We can see customer care reps at a Series C company. We can see, what unicorns, how unicorns vary from, a Series F unicorn is not the same as an average Series F company. So there's 240,000 coefficients in the model, and it's getting really close to prime time. We are at a point where we feel like the market should know about this. We're dealing with major companies in tech, and we want to deliver that as a B2B solution. However, we also think everybody should have access to this platform. So we're on the verge of launching Ion, which is for everybody in tech. It would be free. It wouldn't have all the bells and whistles that the comp platforms would have for, SaaS platforms, but it would have, you'd be able to go in and do market pricing on, more than 5,000 roles at 17,000 different companies in 22 locations across 150 different functions. So it gives you some real ability to fine tune. This is what we discovered, when we looked at compensation. The compensation now, there's a lot of subjectivity, and compensation can be 5 to 10% off the market, and people are okay with that. And we believe that there's no reason we need to have that much error in predicting compensation or trying to negotiate a job offer that could go 5 to 10% either direction.
That's interesting. So are you guys finding that in the information that you're bringing in right now, do you think that aside from the unicorns, are you finding that people historically, traditionally are pretty accurate, or are there a lot of additional levers that have been missed out on or potentially are skewing these results? Or do you think that your platform is providing such a greater accuracy that people will be more excited to use this?
Yeah, it's a questionable as to whether they're going to be excited out of the gate. So compensation is a mature market in terms of surveys and compensation platforms that actually help compensation people. And everyone operates on the assumption that if you put a lot of companies in a database and then you anonymize those companies and don't share which companies they are, but just say, we've got companies of this size and stage and location, and then you create a percentile rank across them, that we can just use the percentiles to determine what compensation is. So what are the percentiles? They're a proxy for the value of the incumbent employee or the possible candidate. Like if I'm going to pay at the 50th percentile, I'm just saying you're middle of the market. If I'm going to pay you at the 60th percentile of that market, maybe you're better than other folks. So using percentiles as a proxy for talent value, which we use, is maybe not the most direct way to get there. So that's one flaw we see in surveys. The other thing is in surveys, like say I have a really top-notch compensation advisors saying, let me look up a $7 billion company. I'm going to do market pricing. I want all my $7 billion companies in the Bay Area in tech. I'm going, okay. We have 60 versions of tech. Do you want networking? Do you want social media? All of them are different. Tech is fine. Okay. Now you look for a $7 billion company. Okay. So now we're going to compare T-Mobile, Intel, Facebook, and Anthropic. They're going to be in that group. Which one are you competing with? So what's going to happen is if they are competing with Anthropic, they're going to be picking the 90th percentile of the job market. And if they're looking at T-Mobile, they'll probably pick the 25th percentile or the 40th. T-Mobile pays, or Facebook or Meta pays 35% more than T-Mobile. So which company did you want? They're all in the database. So how are you getting the design, the precision now? Are you getting precision with a percentile? I could have given you a salary range without any companies and say the salary range for this role is, 200 to 275. And now we can create a percentile rank. And now I can pay the 90th and the 75th and the 50th percentile. But that really doesn't tell me, where does Anthropic pay? Or where does OpenAI pay? Or where does T-Mobile or Intel pay? They pay differently. So what we've developed is we can look at a single company, or we can say, let's create an index of companies. Let's look at the AI, the top 10 AI companies. Let's create an index. So salary surveys can do that if they have the data. But salary surveys, they have to think about it. They've got to take a couple of weeks to figure that out. They've got to charge their customer extra money. We can do it in 45 seconds in our app. You can just pick companies, bang, 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 bang. Okay, let's use that as the index, create an index now.
Yeah.
So precision, it matters. Now, you say, really, does it matter? Again, my comp advisors say, we can be 5% off. It's no big thing. Okay, I get it. Because ultimately, compensation will settle and it'll find its way. Maybe 5% high, maybe 5% low. What's the cost of that? Well, in the tech market, let's look at the macro cost. In the tech market, we do 900 billion in offers every year. 5% of that is 45 billion. So if we're off by 5% consistently, which a lot of comp people will accept, not everyone, but will accept, we're now losing 45 billion in efficiency for that market. Any major tech company with 200 hires is losing more than $1 million in efficiency. Now, who benefits? If the company's paying 5% over all the time, the candidates are benefiting.
Right.
If the candidates are always, if the company's paying less, then it can go the other way. So what happens is the 5% could be a combination of candidate loss in value and company loss and increased cost. But the whole thing is we have AI today. We have advanced technologies. We got all these tools today. Why not get it right? Why not get it precise? So a salary survey will help companies understand what's a range. A comp person, once they have a range, they feel like they can nail it. We say, no, what is the target? We say, what is the hiring point in this market for the top 25%, for instance? Let's hit that. We're going to give you a number. Now we create a range around the top 25. So rather than creating the range and then figuring out later, we create the target and say, here's the range. If you don't want to pay, 275 for that, maybe you'll pay 285. But now you can see where the range is and where you can go in all areas of compensation. So, and I can show you a version of what we've done if you want, but that's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, let's, if you don't mind sharing what the UI or what the app might look like, I definitely would take a peek interest in that. And then I definitely want to talk about your career and your philosophy behind all of this.
Okay, sure. All right. I don't know if you can see this tool.
Yeah.
So this tool is our search tool, which is really a market pricing tool. So I can take any company. I looked at senior data science at Credit Karma and came up with a 276 no bonus, 164, 440 total. And you can validate that. And that's the top 25%. Well, what if it's a superstar? Now suddenly it's nearly 300, and 492. So this is how you can actually, using Talent Rank, can actually make a decision as to what to pay. Now, this person, let's say they were in the AI space. Okay. We apply AI to it and suddenly it's already higher. And actually within companies, the coefficient for AI isn't extremely high, but when you get to AI companies, it becomes extraordinary. If you were to go to like Anthropic, let's look at Anthropic and see what they're paying for the same role. And we don't know for sure if they are, but this is our guess in the marketplace based on multiple data points. So Anthropic, remember that role was 276 and Anthropic, it's 401, 737. I mean, that is a senior data scientist. So you can see different companies are paying different things. Now, if you went over to T-Mobile and that was your competitor, you might be saying, oh, it's slightly different, 87. So now remember, Anthropic and T-Mobile and Intel and all these other companies are in the same cohort. But you can come in here and you can actually look at, a company. Let's select a report. Let's say Google. So here's Google Software Engineering Organization. And wouldn't it be nice to just be able to look at that and say, we're hiring, an L4. This is Google's L4s, right? And so we're basically saying that Google's paying their L3, 219. And then if you go to their L8, which is kind of like a principal engineer, it's over $1 million. And these are roles that are based, and of course, we can tune these based on which market lens we're looking through. And we have a leveling system here. This is Google's level, and this is a universal leveling system that we create. And then we can equate it to your leveling system. So what's cool about this is you can now say, hey, I'm at another company. I'm at Meta, and I want to see what another company pays for a similar role. Meta calls this an E3. And maybe their A5 is over here. And so let's just look at Meta for a second and see what Meta's doing. Meta for an L3. Let's see. Here's Meta's level, but look at their E3. Well, it's 149. It's an L1 plus. But let's say we went a little higher. We can go up to here. So we can actually split levels within a company by just inching up a little bit in the universal system. So we have a universal system. You can see these numbers changing. Still an E3 at Meta. That E3 might be analogous to like a P, I don't know, 1 or 2 at Radford. We have Radford translations as well. If you go back to our search tool, why is it not going to it?
So essentially, I mean, this tool, what it's allowing to do is the paid service of it is allowing these companies to understand where these employees will fall, give them greater accuracy, be able to provide better value to the company itself as well as the people. But then you were saying that there's a free version that you guys are doing. And is the goal for that one to be something that is accessible to the public so they understand what can I get paid for my job, or where should I go apply if I'm looking to have X for income?
Yeah. And I think the real value here is that there is no single source of compensation. Some people, companies use Radford or Pave or Mercer or somebody like that. Individuals will go to Glassdoor or Levels FYI or, salary.com. Their colleagues will say, oh, yeah, I got, a 600 package at Amazon. So that everyone thinks they're worth, their friends are all thinking we're worth 600. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. The idea of Ion is a single source of compensation that a hiring manager can look up, a candidate could look up, a compensation person could look up, a venture capitalist could look, an investor, a talent partner at a VC firm could look up, a recruiter within Amazon could look up. And what happens is the tool's never finished because it learns.
Right.
So if
It's always
you're a
adjusting.
trusted user of Ion, and we would allow people to attain trusted user, and you say, look, I'm looking at a role and I don't believe it's correct, right? I think that I just saw this happen. Hold on.
But there's also something to say about people that have been in roles for a long time, and maybe the
Yes.
companies are in, I don't know, a hiring freeze, or for example, the structure of their payment has changed and the new hires that come in for the same role make more than the existing ones. So how does that affect your data set?
Well, that's always going to happen. I mean, market is dynamic. And if we think about compensation as like the stock market, when we go to the stock market, we get a single number per day or per moment for any stock, right? And that's based on demand and supply of that particular equity. Well, it's similar in the human resource markets and the talent markets. However, it's not so precise. Never can get that precise. But when somebody's in a job, they're going to get salary compression. They had a great offer coming in, and they're going to see a 3 to 5% raise every year because that's what comp people tend to do. But the market might be moving at 7 or 8% for that particular role or that particular function. And so if that's happening, and the person may gain different skills too, they might get super skills. They might get an MBA or they might get an AI certification or any kind of thing like that. So there's going to be differences and inefficiencies in the market always for any given employee or candidate. But the fact is, these can be with AI and with new technologies, these can be addressed. Because if you were to look at TalentValue, for instance, and you were to ask 6 questions for this role in the right 6 questions, and you were able to score the candidate based on those 6 questions, that candidate, now that they've got their MBA or they've got their AI certification, their score might increase, and therefore their compensation value or their talent value would increase.
Do you have
Does
that
that
type of section in the app? Like, do you have that where you're helping these people that are deciding, hey, this person's up for a promotion, or this person needs a bonus, or hey, they've done these things, let's go through some sort of exam with them to understand where they fall in terms
Yeah.
of increase?
Yeah, we have prototypes of those tools,
That's
and
really cool.
waiting for market demand to see which ones we launch.
Seems like there's a lot of advertisements that talk about some AI tool that will, blast your resume to 7,000 different places, because it's become such a technology driven market where resumes essentially get filtered. So no one really understands. So I shouldn't say no one, but I don't think a lot of people understand the ins and outs or the types of questions they should be expecting to talk about, or even how to handle that conversation when it comes to getting into a new position or getting that raise or getting that promotion. So I think it's a really interesting topic that you guys are working on.
Yeah. And, that's another part of the equation, is the communicating your value, communicating who you are. And, I'll put my recruiter hat back on. I did recruiting for a bunch of years. And the advice we would give to candidates before they recruit, before they went into interviews is know yourself. Think about who you are. How do you define yourself? What makes you special? What makes you like, how do you think? Like, what is your angle towards success in the market, in the employment marketplace? Some people, it's ideation. Some people, it is blending with the team or synergizing really well. And that's really valuable for a team. It's
Right.
often not captured in the interviewing cycle. Like, who are these four candidates? We could hire any one of the four. They all bring different skills, but who is actually going to create the creative value to this team? Who is going to make the team better by being there? Is that a interpersonal skill or is it a technical skill that they'll bring? Is it a outlook? So know yourself, and communicating your value is really important because you want to be humble, but at the same time, you want to know yourself so well that you can convey to the interviewer why you think this is a good fit for you. And passion is a big one. We noticed that when we place people in the past, their passion for the market space, the people, or the technology, whatever it might be, was a significant factor in their success. A year later, we would talk and say, what happened? Well, I came in, I saw, I conquered, right? I just love this stuff I'm doing. You just hear, I just love this stuff. I'm going, really? Yeah, a year later, you're still feeling that way, more charged than ever because they brought their value, they applied it to a need, and they got receptivity that they could actually make an impact. So making an impact in a role is one of the key features of motivation, intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
Make an impact. And as a recruiter, I used to see that all the time.
I'm glad you brought up the fact that you used to be a recruiter, 'cause I wanted to ask you about your career over the years and your general philosophy. Like what would you say your core philosophy is or has been through your different ventures, startups, career, everything? What's been the philosophy that ties it all together? What's the fine line between all these projects that you
Um, I think, yeah, I think we'll go back to like, do what you love and the money will follow.
Okay. Okay.
You
That's
know,
hard.
the recruiting's a lot of fun. I like recruiting. It's a puzzle. It's a problem solving. It's complex. There's people involved. It's never predictable and it's always challenging. And that puzzle piece, I'm a pattern recognition person. So I, I tend to like that part. Like, how do we make that fit really work? On the product side, I love the product side because it's more dispassionate. It's more about, I mean, there are people in the end, there's an end user, but like all the technical parts of the product and building a CompEdge was a lot of fun because, we were doing a lot of math and, working all the time. Again, it's a puzzle. How do you predict compensation? What are the factors for compensation? What are the weights for these factors? Which ones do you include in certain situations? What are the anomalies? And that's where
Mm,
it gets to be like people. So I think it's around patterns and it's around the idea of solving puzzles, that kind of puzzle. And both my product foray, which I've been in several different spaces, electronics, media, and now more compensation and talent. They always bring a number of challenges, and overcoming the challenges is the big thing. So I think it's just the motivation is making an impact, being able to solve a problem, and hopefully deliver it in a way that it benefits someone else.
that's great. So when you think back through your career, were there any, whether it was a success or failure, were there any pivotal lessons that you can remember today and say, oh, yeah, this is why I did that, or this is what led to this, and anything like that?
I mean, there's a lesson every day. It's mostly the human factor.
Okay.
I think the biggest lesson is how one could communicate with another, thinking that both of them are on the same page, and then realizing later that what was in one person's mind was different than what was in the other person's mind. And I see that in the recruiting world all the time. Like, I thought when I joined this company that they were telling me that I own the product. Well, what they're really telling me is I was responsible for delivering somebody else's vision.
Sure.
And that was the ownership. So I saw that in the recruiting world and in the talent world. In the product world, the user is in charge, right? Who is, what do they want? And I think, the aha is that getting to the root need is probably the hardest thing. And that's all about communication because you're communicating with your user and you're using your tool or app or whatever to deliver a solution that's good for them. And it's always a mystery. What is the common denominator of all these users that really feel like this is the feature or product, improvement that we want versus what I, as an individual, say, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have that? So again, it's all perception of what's in your mind, what's in my mind. Do we communicate well? So it's all basically based on communication and re-upping that communication and clarifying all the time. So I think communication is the big one.
How do you think that that helps you approach any kind of change that's been thrown your way? Because you've been at this for a long time since the beginning, with AI coming years ago being new. You said that you had some ideas and that, they didn't go the way you wanted to go. So there's some change, but now you've got this tool that looks really amazing. So what's been your mindset between and pushing forward through all these layers of change?
I, I mean, it's just a belief. Again, like my board was telling me a few years ago, like create the MVP, put it out there and just let them tell you what they want. And so the two things that I had to cover is that we're trying to build a Swiss watch. You can't give them a watch that's losing 3 minutes a day and expect them to keep trying it. They're not going to. And so there's the belief that you can get there with, a high precision product, but it doesn't necessarily fit. Like the venture capitalists love the lean startup. They love, throw the MVP out there, get your feedback, iterate, iterate, iterate. And that's pretty good. The fact is that a lot of products, like Henry Ford, said, if I had asked people if they wanted an automobile, like what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
For
It's
sure,
like
because that's all they know.
they didn't say they wanted an automobile because they couldn't visualize it. So a lot of the products that I and people in our team have seen are things that we imagine, and then marrying that imagination to the market is a hard thing. And
Yeah,
so that I think is the thing that it's a different way of product development. It's not like taking a product and saying, what can we do? What can we iterate to the next level that will get people's attention and give us the incremental advantage over our competition?
yeah,
It's let's think about the next big thing and how this could be done. And it was really with the compensation, it was all about, I came from an economics background, so it's all about how do we create a marketplace for compensation? And how could it be like the stock market where there's more precision and it's more, the measurement tools are clearer and it's not all about, imagining, subjective, solutions for this. And that's what companies do. And as a recruiter, I saw this all the time. I was seeing candidates get overpaid and I was seeing lowball offers and I was going, there's no guidance. So we knew there was a core problem. The question is, how do you solve that problem?
yeah,
And so that was, a lot of imagination had to go there at first. And with a lot of things we were doing, especially with AI in real time, people didn't want. And we were too early on that particular product. Now we'll see what the market does.
mm,
Compensation, it's a mature marketplace. People aren't in a hurry to change. It's a high stakes game. They don't want to see something that they can't understand. Black box doesn't work for comp people. They want to see what's going in it. And so we show them the data. We actually have, whenever you pull up a role, you can just click on see salaries and you can see where the data came from. And the data is market data. It's unique data. It's data that we were able to call. And we have 22 sources of data in the marketplace, some of which nobody knows about. We were able to dig really deep. And that gives us the ability to deliver. But without showing the data, no comp person would buy the platform.
right,
They didn't want to hear about AI only. So it's AI with a human twist, which is the hybrid part, applied to real data, verified data. And when you bring the three together, you get accuracy.
right.
And I wanted to say one thing that we're really pleased about. We've had 7 different PhD data scientists work with us in various times in this project. The most recent one is one of the most brilliant, and he did a recent model with using random forest and all the uh, regression models and everything that he applied it. He said our model's beating every ML model right now by more than 10% in accuracy.
That's great. Good
He
job.
said, I don't know how you did it. They help us a little on equity, but on base and bonus, we are predicting better than the models can predict um, with the data that they have. It's because we combine the human side in two ways: verified data and then the AI tools. And we
Right.
didn't just throw AI at it to say, figure this out.
Right.
And, our biggest competitor going forward is actually, ChatGPT and Anthropic and, and
They're growing
Claude. And
pretty, yeah. I mean, they're growing a lot. They're integrating a lot of things. They're working really
yeah,
hard to stay, cutting edge. You talk about the different people that you worked with and the different teams and everything. So I kind of wanted to touch on your opinions, on leadership and those people. And so with your philosophy and how you navigate, what do you think separates an effective leader from everyone else?
I think authenticity, there's probably a number of factors. So the best leaders have a couple characteristics. They are able to see things at 30,000 feet and they're able to get
Yeah.
into the weeds at 10 feet. So that combination is rare because that's sort of your global thinker and your execution person. It's left brain, right brain abilities, to move from left to right and back. I think discipline in process is an important thing too. And everyone wants the same thing. They want to know, tell me what the goal is, tell me what my tools are, give me autonomy to do this, and let me make the decisions, guide me when I'm off base, but let me find a solution. You don't have to tell me the solution. Tell me the goal. And so that is Daniel Pink. If you've read his Drive rather, you can see that what people want in the marketplace, especially engineers and manager level up, is the autonomy, the purpose, the clarity, and the ability to make an impact. And if a manager can facilitate that and not dictate,
Mhm.
but to nurture and to guide, that's the perfect manager. And
For sure.
stay tuned, because I think a lot of managers pass information out and say, okay, let's get this done. And then scream in 6 weeks when it wasn't done, but there was no intermediate follow up. So the detailed, the weekly check in is probably not a bad idea, or the daily stand up, probably not a bad idea.
So based on that, what advice would you give to younger professionals that are trying to enter some form of business or that are trying to blend maybe strategy and technology, that might have ideas for startups, or that are just trying to do something productive at this point? What would be your advice that you'd give?
So you have so many brilliant founders and they have these great big brains and they're thinking about all these different things, is to listen. You've got the idea and you probably know how to get there your way, right? And you want to run full speed, and nobody's, smart enough or fast enough to get there with you.
Right.
But to step back and go, wait a second, okay, there's a lot of talented people in this room, and if I can listen to the feedback and engage everybody, now I can scale. Now I can delegate. And it may not be exactly the way I envisioned it happening, but that vision is malleable, and the people around you help you get there, and you can stand on their shoulders or they can stand on yours. But it's bringing it together as a team. And it's hard for people that are extremely smart, high IQ. In tech, it's full of folks who are way too smart and could do it all. And some actually end up running the company and taking it all the way there. But ultimately, they're going to have to scale.
Right.
And
So being open to learning and pivoting, right?
you need people. You need people, and you need to be able to hear. You need to be able to listen. You need to be able to adapt.
Richard, I got one last question for you. What trends or shifts in technology do you foresee coming in the next decade? And what does that mean for either your level of excitement or maybe some goals?
So this is a personal opinion, and
Okay.
this isn't a technical vision, but a vision of society. Technology is an awesome thing. Technology has side effects. How does society and technology, how do we work together? How does it pay attention to our health, to our well-being, to our psyche? And so I think that the folks that are looking at recognizing that technology has negative side effects at times, that we start to shape our technologies and listen to how technology can affect us. And, you might say social medias have positive and negative effects. You can certainly say that certain technologies have created health issues, and there's those things. But where we can integrate technology, and rather than just going full speed into everything that grows, that everything that all progress is acceptable without consideration, is wrong, because all these technologies have side effects and we need to think about them as we develop them, before we launch them, if we haven't thought about them yet, to rethink them once they're launched to see how they're
Hmm.
affecting us because we're humans, right? We're ultimately in concert with a natural environment, and we are toying with our natural environment with technology in hundreds of ways that won't allow us to evolve fast enough to get through this with strong psyche and good health. So we need to get in concert with our natural environment and let these technologies enhance our lives and not interrupt a lot of the things that are going on. And you can see this with the US health crisis, which is tremendous. 74% of the Americans have a chronic condition.
Hmm.
Why? I've written a few papers on this, and so I've thought about it a lot. But why is because there's a lot of things we've introduced into the environment and to
There's
our
a
diet and
large
to our
history to
life,
that. Yeah.
our psyche, that is affecting our system at a core level. The immune system is very, very sensitive and you can upset it. So I think where we can combine technology in ways that integrate into more of a natural setting, understand that there's a natural form of living, would be really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's a big one is figuring out how to get us back to some sort of harmonious state where it's not disruptive. I like that a lot. Richard, it's been an incredible conversation. I really, really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experiences. Is there a website that you'd like to share or something specific for any listeners that want to get in touch with your work or look at what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a B2B SaaS company or a B2B company looking for a SaaS solution for compensation, it's CompEdge.io. If you are looking for compensation and you're anyone in tech, look for Ion to be released. Ion will be released in the next month, sometime in November. And Ion, there's a lot of Ions out there. It's Ion Index.
Awesome. I look forward to that.
It will be there and it will, unfold some of the what's happening in the current job market, the hiring market of today's
Excellent.
technology space.
Richard, thank you again so much. It's awesome. Thank you for all the knowledge.
Excellent. Good talking to you, Igor.